Alright guys, Carl here, Cultivate with Carl. It's time for your weekly garden update, and man, is there a lot going on. I have been working, it's my second day off, I've been working all morning, and we're going to see some video of that. We had some compost maintenance. We actually got rid of the cucumber bed behind me, you'll see some video on that. Harvested a bunch of peppers, and basically we set up one of the garden beds, and we're going to talk about how we're going to do that in a moment. Really, the only thing that's stopping me is I've run out of materials that I need to set these beds up a little bit further. So I've been watching some of the other YouTubers. Everybody is suffering a hot summer. Anybody in zone 9, 9A, the heat has been tremendous. This weekend it was like 102 straight heat, no heat index, 115 with the heat index. Craziness. So it has had a definite effect on our growing this season. And we've talked about that off and on. So the thing to do now is to fall back, regroup, and then prepare for the fall. Because this fall, I have big plans. I have more beds going in. We're going to try some different crops that we've never tried before. We're going to try some crops again that didn't work out that well in the summer. But without further ado, let's take a quick tour, and we can talk about some of the things that we've done today. Including, some of the segments you're about to see, I filmed earlier while I was actually doing the work. It's later in the afternoon. I'm about to knock off for the day. So let's go back and take a look at some of those segments, and then we'll come in for one final close. Guys, we are now working on compost. Let's flip around and see Okay, here we go. I have generous neighbors who give me their table scraps, and they sit out here for a little bit, get nice and ripe, until I get a chance to put them in the compost. And then I come along with these pine shavings from Tractor Supply, or I guess I'm supposed to say a big box store because I'm not sponsored. And then I will add them to get my compost balance. The area I'm standing in right now is going to be dedicated for my compost. It's under a tree, but it gets sun later in the afternoon, and I have a lot of material right here I can use. The goal is to... This is my third pile. I've got 2 piles I think are almost ready. So the goal by the end of the summer will be get 3 new piles started. And that takes a lot of material and takes a lot of time. So, but for right now, let me tell you, these geo bins are amazing. So it's better than building. Originally I was going to build pins from pallets and stuff. These geo bins are a lot better because you can move them around. If you don't like them where they're at, you just pick them up and move them. So there you go. All right. It's hot. Hot. South Mississippi, zone 9A. Getting to it, though. Getting the work done. All right, guys. Here we go. We're going to harvest a bunch of peppers. I'm going to harvest all the peppers that I think might be ready. Leave the ones that I don't think aren't. Like this guy, he's going to stay a little while. But man, we have been lucky with the peppers. These things look like bananas. I'll be trying these out on a salad later. Oh, I got a squash bug in there with my pepper. And the squash bugs, I'll take you with me. Well, maybe a little microphone noise. Let's go. The squash bugs this year have been terrible. And I've tried every organic tool that I can to take care of them. And I am now to the point where I have decided that I will be moving up to 7 Dust. And 7 Dust is not organic, and it is not good for the bees. But the stink bugs are absolutely ruining all of my crops. And so if I'd rather have some crops that I have to wash off, or crops that are 100% organic, I would have to say at least I would like to have some crops. Man, I don't know what happened this year with the stink bugs, but I tell you what, we'll be ready for them next year. Look at that. We will be ready for, well, actually, we'll be ready for them in the fall. Because I am not going to put up with this in the fall. And we are going to deal with them directly. Alright, so that's all the jalapenos. And all of the, well, no, there's more jalapenos down here. We're getting a really good harvest of peppers here. And though I don't eat a lot of peppers, I will actually be sending these to my son and his fiancée. And they eat them, and they like them a lot. I think that's great. Look at this. Nice. So a lot of my other green peppers had suffered, but I used them in spaghetti, and it worked out pretty well. I chopped them up, used them in the sauce, and it was really good. Now, let's get this little stink bug out of here, you little effer. Come on, you little effer, get out of here. I believe I'm going to grill the marconis, and I'm going to put these banana peppers on a salad. But we got some really nice, jalapenos. There you go, check it out. Oh, you're a little wobbly. I'm using a new camera stand today, trying it out. It's not as heavy duty as the other one. So therein is your pepper bed. Let's move on to something else. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As you can see, guys, the tomatoes are in a rough spot. I'm getting the last few that are going to grow this season. Even though on tops there are a few more flowers, it is just so hot that they're not going to produce tomatoes. Now, the squash bugs were eating me out of house and home, so I tried everything I could organic. I had a blue jay working for me. Things were going swimmingly, and then it wasn't. And the stink bugs, the leaf-footed stink bugs in particular, were just eating everything. So that I could get the rest of these tomato harvested, I finally had to break and throw some 7 dust on there. And you're like, what about the pollinators? And I was like, okay, I get you. At this point, there are no pollinators around. It's hot. The pollinators have stopped coming. And what I have to do, what I'm hoping to do, is save these last few tomatoes, and then I will transition these pots into doing something else. And the okra is got a pretty good going now. They're all about 6 inches tall. I could pull these tomatoes out and then let the okra take over that bed. On what was the cucumber bed, I believe we're going to plant a cover crop of sunflowers. And so the sunflowers are good for sending down deep roots, and they're good for absorbing nutrients and filtering bad stuff out of the soil. So we're going to plant a cover crop of sunflowers. We'll have some cool sunflowers to look at, and that's about it. I do have a couple of eggplants over here. It's pretty cool, Japanese eggplants. You can see the old 7 dust on there. But what you're not seeing is any of those leaf-footed stink bugs. So I would declare victory on that. These are sunflowers, and all these buckets are going to get empty. All right, let me flip you around. So there you go, buddies. That's it. Everything is going as planned. What I think I intend on doing now is I think I'm going to give up on the strawberries. I haven't, even when I got the strawberry plants to grow well, we never got enough strawberries to worry about. I think maybe this year I got a dozen. Last year it was fewer than that. So I think strawberries is something I'm not going to waste my time with anymore, because I haven't the space or the patience to deal with that stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull the strawberries over there, and I'm going to prep that soil for potatoes. But that's about it. So with the compost today, we were able to flip all the compost, and we put more compost on the new bed. I have some neighbors who are helping provide food scraps and stuff for the beds, and that's good. and we're gonna work on that through the summer. Hopefully by the end of the summer we'll have these beds ready to put in top off for the fall garden stuff. But I think for now that's about it. We're gonna go to some of those cut-in videos, and then we're gonna close out with something special. Hey guys, here is the zucchinis and the squash, and they are doing fine. They are still living under the tarp. I am about to take the tarp off, and we're going to try some BT, and we're going to try and beat the vine borers by spraying the BT before they get a chance to get into it. Now, we've been getting flowers off and on, but they haven't had a chance to pollinate because they're under the tent, and presumably no bugs can get under there. So that's where we're at. So hopefully we'll get squash and zucchini production going again here shortly. There's the old pepper bed. You're going to see a video of me harvesting the peppers. Squirrel Defense Force. All right, let's talk about this bed right here. All right, this bed right here. A friend of mine and I, we built this bed, and it was cheaper than we could get the aluminum beds for. And then it just so happened the aluminum beds went on sale cheaper than we can make these beds for. So a lot of this bed is made with reclaimed lumber, which I found on the curb. And I'm not ashamed to say I picked it up. And, you know, so a lot of the bed support, all the 2x4s you see were essentially free. And the 1x6s I paid for. So it's still about 70 bucks to finish. And so now what I've done is I've leveled it all up and lined it with plastic. And you say, well, why did you use treated lumber, and why did you line it with plastic? Well, first of all, I had to use treated lumber because here in South Mississippi, I've already explained that we have a terrible infestation of Formosa termites. Now, I understand that some of you, that's less than ideal, that you wouldn't use treated lumber, but unfortunately in my environment, it's treated lumber or nothing. So to mitigate the treated lumber, I have put the plastic sheeting in between, and you're like, well, the plastic sheeting has chemicals. I get it. I've done my research. I'm comfortable with this setup, and it's my garden. So there we go. I would recommend that if you do not like this, do not do this in your garden. If you are building gardens and wondering whether or not it's a good idea, I would say go forth and do your research and see what they have to say. A lot of people are under the belief like cinder blocks still contain arsenic, and treated lumber contain, or maybe it was treated lumber contained arsenic back in the day, it no longer contains arsenic. Then cinder blocks used to contain asbestos and crap like that, and it no longer does. So with that being said, I got the bed lined. I lined the bottom with cardboard for weed mitigation, and I put some logs in, which I need more logs. So I need to fill up about 6 inches of this bed with logs and debris so that I can fill the top 12 inches with soil. And that way we'll avoid what happened to this bed, which is exactly the same thing, with the bottom becoming one big mud patty. So that'll be that. All right, let's get on over here to the tomatoes and take a look at them. As you can see, guys, the tomatoes are in a rough spot. I'm getting the last few that are going to grow this season. Even though on tops there are a few more flowers, it is just so hot that they're not going to produce tomatoes. Now, the squash bugs were eating me out of house and home, so I tried everything I could organic. I had a blue jay working for me. Things were going swimmingly, and then it wasn't. And the stink bugs, the leaf-footed stink bugs in particular, were just eating everything. So that I could get the rest of these tomato harvested, I finally had to break and throw some 7 dust on there. And you're like, what about the pollinators? And I was like, okay, I get you. At this point, there are no pollinators around. It's hot. The pollinators have stopped coming, and what I have to do, what I'm hoping to do, is save these last few tomatoes, and then I will transition these pots into doing something else. And the okra is got a pretty good going now. They're all about 6 inches tall. I could pull these tomatoes out and then let the okra take over that bed. On what was the cucumber bed, I believe we're going to plant a cover crop of sunflowers. And so the sunflowers are good for sending down deep roots, and they're good for absorbing nutrients and filtering bad stuff out of the soil. So we're going to plant a cover crop of sunflowers. We'll have some cool sunflowers to look at, and that's about it. I do have a couple of eggplants over here. It's pretty cool, Japanese eggplants. You can see the old 7 dust on there. But what you're not seeing is any of those leaf-footed stink bugs. So I would declare victory on that. These are sunflowers, and all these buckets are going to get emptied. All right, let me flip you around. So there you go, buddies. That's it. Everything is going as planned. What I think I intend on doing now is I think I'm going to give up on the strawberries. I haven't, even when I got the strawberry plants to grow well, we never got enough strawberries to worry about. I think maybe this year I got a dozen. Last year it was fewer than that. So I think strawberries is something I'm not going to waste my time with anymore, because I haven't the space or the patience to deal with that stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull the strawberries over there, and I'm going to prep that soil for potatoes. Okay guys, check it out. Cucumbers are gone. We had, they had just slowed down in production, and the cucumbers we were getting off of the vines were not as good as the cucumbers from early in the season. And I don't know if it has to do with the heat or with the cucumbers maturing in age. I do have time to replant cucumbers if I want them, but I have like 8 jars of pickled cucumbers up in the cabinet. So I don't know that I'll redo cucumbers, but for sure, let's talk about some stuff real quick. I'm gonna flip you around. Okay, all right, so let's look at these trellis methods here. So if you recall, the first trellis where the empty poles are, I did the Florida weave, which was as the plants grew, I went and added layers of wire there. And though it was effective, it was very effective, I still think the trellis net is a better deal. The trellis net was pretty much, once I put it up, it was no maintenance, and the plants grew right up it, and it was fine. The Florida weave required some maintenance that I had to just keep doing it. And I understand how people will, you know, if they have long rows of large plants, they, you know, the Florida weave works out great because you can just put it up as the plants grow. But I would say in a raised bed with a plant that's going to grow, I would say that the trellis netting is a better way to go. In fact, so much so, I think what I'm going to do here is add some supports with some eye holes in it, and that way I could just hook the trellis net to it in the future instead of using up all my support poles. But there you go, the cucumber bed is no more. We've got a lot of weed coming up, a lot of weeds, not weed. We got a lot of weed coming up. We've got a lot of weeds coming up. These are pepper plants that have never really thrived. But in here, there was a lot of blackberries and stuff. Well, we're going to clean all this out. It's just going to be flat mulch, maybe the irrigation system. And then after that, we're going to just, you know, I think we may rake back the mulch, add some amendments, and then let the bed sit until the fall garden. So I think that's what we're going to do. All right. All right, guys, there you have it. That's a wrap here for this week's update. Lots going on. It's getting really hot, getting prepared for the fall. So with that, let me mention one thing. I had some viewer mail. And in this viewer mail, one of my viewers, and you know I love you guys, I love every one of my subscribers, but that viewer had a specific request that I sing a song. And so for that viewer, here we go. Off we go to the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder, that a boy, give 'em the guns. Down we dive, spouting our flame from under, off with one hell of a roar. We'll live in fame or go down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force. There you have it, guys. Anything from my viewers? Signing off here, Carl from Cultivate with Carl. Have a fine Air Force day.